Choice, your creative superpower. We have the power to manifest as we dedicate attention to our thoughts, but often miss opportunity to achieve the greatest good. Your superpower is waiting to be unleashed to unlock a fuller, more rewarding world for all. Join us every Thursday at noon Mountain Time for Choice, your creative superpower with Zoe MURO. And now, here's Zoe.
Welcome to the New Thought Media Network. My name is Zoe MURO, and I am honored to be your host for Choice, your creative superpower. If you're coming back, it's good to see you again. And if this is your first time, welcome to the show. I'm a religious science practitioner at the Oakland Center for Spiritual Living in Oakland, California. And I'm also a transformational coach, assisting people in living their lives as fully as possible. Today, in episode 3, we'll be exploring the relationship between choice and forgiveness. Now, forgiveness in and of itself can be a highly charged and involved subject, but if there ever was a topic that was tied tightly to choice, this is it. I was thinking that maybe this episode should come with, I don't want to say a warning, but a note that some content just might be a bit difficult to process for some people, because forgiveness tends to draw on very tender places in our hearts and minds. And I often give examples that come from my own life, because it's important to me to speak with integrity. And I understand that we each have our own triggers and tolerances, so feel free to step back if you need to and watch the recording in your own time if that's what works best for you. But now, where to begin? Where to begin? So let's start with this. What does it mean to forgive? Now, I'm not looking for a dictionary definition here, even though I often start that way, because we need to acknowledge a choice point. Now, you'll hear me use this term choice point fairly regularly in these episodes. So for those of you who haven't heard this term before, a choice point is a recognition that we have a choice to make, or the realization that we have made a choice. Now, I bring this up here because all that follows in this talk is going to be dependent to a lesser or greater degree on how you choose to define forgiveness. So I'm actually going to take a step back, one more step, and I'm going to suggest that literally the first thing you need to choose is whether you even accept that there is truly such a thing as forgiveness. As I said in episode 1, your choices can be influenced by your beliefs and values. But it's also true that your beliefs and values can very well be influenced by your choices. So, to be clear, if you choose that there is no such thing as true forgiveness, well, that either makes this discussion a moot point for you, or, and this is my hope, that it's an opportunity for you to choose to investigate a different perspective that would allow for the possibility of forgiveness as being a legitimate action or a state of being or a process. So, to explore this thing called forgiveness, let's start with some things that forgiveness is not. Excuse me. Forgetting. It is not forgetting. It is not waiting for time to heal all wounds. It's not denying the hurt or excusing wrong behavior. It's not explaining away the hurt or stuffing your anger or circumventing justice. And forgiveness is not the same as reconciliation. And forgiveness is not simply a feeling. I've found over the years working with clients who are dealing with issues around forgiveness that this short list of things I'm suggesting forgiveness is not is exactly why they felt they could not forgive someone. The way that they held the definition of forgiveness in their mind obscured its true meaning and intent. And so they denied or simply did not recognize that there were potential benefits. So the first thing I'll say forgiveness is then is that it's a choice. It is a specific, willful act. It doesn't happen by accident. It isn't passive, nor frankly, is it a requirement of life. I mean, you can't be forced to forgive. For that matter, you can't be forced to take offense either. Second, forgiveness is usually not a one and done instance, but more likely it's a process, an ongoing developing action. Now, however you can hold the concept, whether you resonate with it as a process of forgiving or as achieving a state of forgiveness, it is definitely to your advantage because, and this third point is a big one, forgiveness is for you, not the so-called offender. It's about your healing. Now, you've likely heard this quote from Alexander Pope, "To err is human, to forgive divine." Okay, I want to address this one right here and now. With all due respect to the Honorable Mr. Pope, I heartily disagree with you, sir. There is a very well-known quote in the Bible that speaks about the nature of love. Corinthians 13, which includes this verse, which I believe is the 5th verse. It says it, and it's talking about love here, it does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Well, in New Thought and Science of Mind, we know another name for love. God, the Creator, the thing itself. So I just don't see how loving spirit could be capable of taking offense. That's the antithesis of perfect love. So I say, with all due respect, Mr. Pope, to forgive is human. And being human, forgiveness is most certainly personal. It looks and feels different depending on whatever act or circumstance brought about the need for forgiveness, as well as who the offender is. And what's your relationship to the offender? There's so many different factors. And here's a really important one. Forgiveness allows for a reclamation or a redirection of energy. Now, let me explain that. Look at the language we use when we talk about our grievances. We hold a grudge. A grudge is, of course, defined as a persistent feeling of ill will or resentment. And we bear resentments. For it to persist requires energy. And if you think it's just mental energy, consider the physical feelings you experience when you think of the grievance or injustice. Maybe your heart races. Maybe you feel that clench in the stomach. That's energy being expended, folks. And if we take it to another level, we can go as far as talking about a feud, a bitter dispute that's often prolonged or firmly established by long persistence. There's that word again, persistence. Persistence requires energy. Let's push it even further along the continuum, and we get to outright war. The amount of energy it takes to hold on to all that war is far more extensive than peace could ever require. So yes, being able to make the choice to pursue and achieve forgiveness can free up It's a staggering amount of energy that can be used in a far better way. Depending on what the affront or the condition or the injustice or the crime might have been, we could be talking about years, decades, even a lifetime of suffering, which is effectively multiplied by refusing to forgive or being unable to choose to forgive. Now, I want to just take a pause here for a moment. Thinking about circumstances that I've personally faced, I would have to say, in all honesty, that the very idea of forgiveness in some circumstances felt, well, it was a combination of disbelief and fear. Pure disbelief that I could ever choose forgiveness, and fear that I would somehow lose something if I gave up that anger, if I gave up that hurt. While I personally have not had to deal with some of the most intense and debilitating lifelong injustices that exist in our world, such as racism or homophobia, in my life, I have endured the pain and indignity of neglect, abandonment, betrayal, mental and emotional abuse, and physical abuse, including rape. Probably doesn't take much to imagine that to forgive a rapist was far more difficult for me than to forgive a beating. But then again, it seems when the difficulty of that choice was so staggering, the benefits that I found in being able to forgive were proportionally far greater. Coming into this episode, I knew that the subject of abuse and choice would really need their own episode, because there is so much to unpack there. And I'm not going to shy away from addressing that. I'm just not today, because I want to come back to how choice is involved here. So another time, another episode, I will specifically be dealing with abuse. What exactly are we choosing when we choose to forgive? We're not forgetting, we're not downplaying or ignoring. So what is the benefit? Why would I want to consider that forgiving is a viable choice? Well, let me offer this. Think of it as a purging, a release, a letting go. Think of it as choosing freedom. People who have been subjected to the most grievous harm often feel that their aggressors have taken something from them. A sense of safety, a sense of belonging or innocence, which was the case for me. But refusal to forgive, and I'm deliberately saying refusal here as opposed to inability, is the equivalent of finding yourself imprisoned and then throwing away the key to your own cell door. And that is something that I did for years until I could approach forgiveness. So instead, forgiveness gives us the opportunity to choose freedom. Freedom from fear and shame. Freedom to be fully alive. To trust another. To trust yourself. To love another. To love yourself. I chose to see myself as something far better than the damaged goods that I believed myself to be. Choosing to pursue, to understand the aggression, even choosing to understand the aggressors, which was an important part of my process of forgiveness, gave me the opportunity to take back not only what they had taken from me, or at least what it felt like, but also what I had given up, what I had given away myself through my anger, through my shame. Even sad to say, what felt like hatred at times for them and for myself. I found dignity. I found hope. I got closer to knowing my true self. It's interesting. When I was doing some research for this episode, I found an enormous amount of discussion of forgiveness around the concept of sin, even to the point where it seemed that we humans needed to be forgiven for literally the sin of being born into this human existence. Yet when I searched the benefits of forgiveness, the discussions were not just about a moral imperative or about how forgiveness is an act of kindness. No, they were overwhelmingly about both the emotional and physical benefits that came with forgiving. Not for the one being forgiven, but for the one forgiving. Putting aside the most intense and seemingly unforgivable aggressions, let's look at a simple grievance. I like simple examples too. So you ask someone to pick up a book for you, and they say, absolutely, I'll have it for you. And then they don't follow through. So there's disappointment. Now, how do we choose? Yep, there's that word again, choose. How do we choose to view this lack of follow through? Do we choose to see it as a simple faux pas, a letdown? Or do we decide that we need to add a drama of loss and betrayal and bad intent? Do we see it as a singular incident, which it might well have been, or do we choose to add it to a litany of past offenses? When we speak of forgiveness, there's no avoiding the part that choice plays in our lives. From the moment we choose to see something as an affront, or significantly worse, to the choice we make to address it or to let it go, to the choosing how we want to proceed, to the choice we make as to its, what I'll refer to as durability. That is to say, is this something that fades in the moment, or that bothers you in this moment and then fades, or does it linger and build? And then, of course, all the way to the choice to forgive or withhold forgiveness. There's a lot going on there. Earlier, I had mentioned that forgiveness is for the forgiver, the one doing the forgiving, not actually for the one being forgiven. Now, of course, a person who is forgiven can certainly benefit. I mean, there's no question. There's no longer that animosity, no longer that tension. But the effect on the forgiver is potentially life-changing. And I most certainly speak from experience here. I mean, the very fact that I am here, if I had not been able to pursue that forgiveness, I don't know that I would have been able to have the life that I have today. No, I do know it would not have been possible at all. So here are a few things that studies have repeatedly affirmed. Forgiveness is good for your heart, literally. Forgiveness makes for less perceived stress. Less perceived stress is followed by a decrease in symptoms of mental illness and an increase in mental well-being. That includes reductions in negativity, increased feelings of positive emotions, experiencing positive relationships with others, as well as discerning sensibilities of spiritual growth and identifying a sense of meaning and purpose in life, as well as a greater sense of empowerment. Co-creation, anyone? From a physical perspective, forgivers have been shown to receive benefits in their blood pressure, in their muscle tension, their immune response, their overall cardiovascular response. Something else to consider is who is more likely to be chosen as a recipient of your forgiveness? Who's more likely to have it denied? Are there people you truly do not believe deserve your forgiveness? I'm going to go out on a limb here, folks. Spiritual whim, so to speak. Everyone is deserving of forgiveness. Now, if you're still here and you haven't left, thank you. Congratulations. I appreciate your sticking with me because I know that that statement is a big statement. And it does deserve a justification. The most important thing to be clear about here right now is that I am not saying that the offense does not matter. I am not saying that justice doesn't matter. I'm not saying forgiveness excuses the behavior, nor am I saying that you would necessarily reconcile with the offender. I am saying that forgiveness gives us the opportunity to reclaim our power, to reclaim our energy, to reclaim our sense of self by choosing to end the death grip the offense had on our life. And effectively, we get to choose to live. Because this is a discussion of how choice and forgiveness are related, please understand that there is so much more to be examined regarding forgiveness, but it goes far beyond my purposes here today in this episode. But I do want to just give a few caveats. If you are being abused in any way, get yourself to a state of safety, a place of safety. That is of paramount importance. The act of forgiving is something that many, if not most of us, need to study, understand, explore, experiment with. Forgiving is a skill. And given that it's a skill, it can be learned and it can be improved upon. Let's see, that's one. Okay. Third, while forgiveness is not a feeling in and of itself, giving it lip service without feeling the rightness of it. And I do mean literally feeling. It's not going to work. And it can lead to even more pain. So be gentle with yourself. And that leads me to number 4. Forgiving oneself is all too often neglected. But it serves exactly the same purpose as forgiving another. I don't know, maybe it's even doubled because you're coming from both sides of this. And I'll tell you, for me personally, that has been my greatest challenge. Now, I got sober about 41 years ago, which means that my kids had to deal with an active alcoholic and an addict for a father in their early formative years. I can never get that time back. I can never change not being there for them. I can never undo the times I put them in danger because of my drinking and drugging. Forgive and forget? No. No, for me, the key to my sober longevity is to forgive myself and remember. I choose to keep my memory green because that allows me to continually model how a responsible person leads their life. Withholding forgiveness from myself but served no purpose. I need that energy to be more fully who I truly am. I want to encourage you to take what you've heard today and allow it to percolate within you. You know, I've often felt that the best presentations aren't the ones that answer your questions, but the ones that question your answers. So, how do you forgive? How do you define forgiveness? Is there someone that you might consider forgiving? Why? Is there someone you feel you simply cannot forgive? Again, why? Are you currently struggling with an issue around forgiveness? If so, I encourage you to focus on that issue. Don't turn away from it, especially if it's causing you pain and suffering. You know, there are countless books and websites that deal with forgiveness, but I will encourage you to speak with someone who can support you in this endeavor. Whether it's a trusted friend, prayer partner, a practitioner, a counselor, a coach, a therapist, whomever. Don't go it alone if you're struggling. Life is too precious for us to ignore such a powerful tool as forgiveness. But ultimately, it's your choice. If you'd like to drop me a line to let me know how you're dealing with all of this, I'd be very, very happy to hear from you. My email address is zodemuro@gmail.com. ZODEMURO@gmail.com. And I'll also say if there's a topic relating to choice that you would like to see me address in a future episode, by all means, let me know. I'd love to. Folks, I truly appreciate your spending time with me this week. But be sure to explore all that the New Thought Media Network has to offer. For example, today at 12 noon Pacific time, that's 1 p.m. Mountain time, check out Finding the Joy in the Journey with practitioner and very soon to be minister, the vibrant Gina Calvario-Krupka. And we have prayer time, meditation, information, contemplation, music, and so much more. But it takes not only time and talent to present all of that, it takes treasure as well. So please, if you can, go to ntmedia.org, mash that donate button. Help us bring all of this goodness to quite literally the world. I look forward to seeing you again next week. Until we meet again, choose wisely. Much love and many blessings. Namaste.
Choice, your creative superpower. We have the power to manifest as we dedicate attention to our thoughts, but often miss opportunity to achieve the greatest good. Your superpower is waiting to be unleashed to unlock a fuller, more rewarding world for all. Join us every Thursday at noon Mountain Time for Choice, your creative superpower with Zoe DeMuro.
Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, for your continued support. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown Atlanta, for your monthly contribution. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, for your monthly contribution. And please help us welcome Om Center for Spiritual Living in La Mesa, California. Thank you for your monthly donation. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, for your most generous donation. And a special thanks To Hefferlin Foundation for your generous technology grant. And Suze Ajit, thank you for your very generous donation. And a super special thank you to Dr. Tracy Brown, RSCP. Thanks for being a super donor. And a big shout out to all our committed donors.